Hi, Joanna.
Hey, Danica, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having me.
Yes, thank you for joining. We are going to talk about guest communication today. So, thank you for everyone joining. And now we are ready to begin. How are you, Danica?
I'm good. I'm super excited about this topic. I could talk about it all day long.
Super. So, we're not going to be all day long, but we do have some very interesting things to share. So, let's make every second count. So, I also want to introduce Carl from Upsell Guru. Hi, Carl. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Hey, Joanna. I'm fine. And yeah, thanks very much for inviting me, and huge pleasure, especially with my co-attendees, Danica and Anna. Really excited about today.
Absolutely. And you're doing Upsell Guru. So can you tell us quickly what does Upsell Guru does?
Yeah, so how you can imagine Upsell Guru, it's in the name. We are an upselling tool, and we help hotels generate more revenue and profits at the pre-arrival, on-arrival, and in-stay stage of the customer journey. And I'm one of the co-founders of Upsell Guru, married, 2 kids, and yeah, again, excited about the opportunity today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carl. And last but not least, I want to introduce Anna Rando, my dear colleague from BookBoost. So hi, Anna, how are you?
Hey, Joanna, and I'm super good. Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to dynamic and interactive session. Hopefully, with lots of questions from the audience.
Absolutely. That's the priority today. We want to hear about what you guys want to find out more about, share some tips. We have lots of examples also from the partners we work with, from hotels, service apartments, hostels, and so on. So we also want to share it with the audience. And as I mentioned, this is one more of the BookBoost webinars. We host webinars every month where basically we simplify hospitality. We talk about all those topics that are a little bit challenging with an emphasis on how you can make it happen in a few steps, how you can make it happen easily, and how you can start today. So let's jump right into our topic, which is how to build guest communication that truly converts. We're going to talk about personalization. We're going to talk about how to upsell better, what to say in your campaigns, etc., etc. So let's kick off right now. We have a few planned questions, and then we're going to go into a Q&A where we want to hear from you. So if you come up with any questions, just leave them on the chat, and then I will pick them to ask to our speakers. So let's get started. And first, I want to talk a little bit with you, Danica, about what normally fails with personalization and guest communication. So why do some hotels think that it doesn't work?
Yeah, I think it's a great starting point. So I think we all know in 2025 the importance of personalization. For me, with the clients that I work with across the sectors, it's really that intention to execution gap. And that's where failure comes in. Hotel brands will often think they're being personalized, but what lands from a guest experience point of view to the guest is that often it feels generic, irrelevant, or even worse, spammy. You know, personalization is not just about dynamically inserting a name and an email. It's about the context. It's really understanding when to show up on the guest journey and with what message without overwhelming. And often hotels are stuck in outdated systems. They work in siloed data, and they approach it with a one-size-fits-all to a campaign that doesn't reflect the guest's intent, preference, or booking purpose. So I think that's one of the main reasons why they fail. And then the second part is really the feedback loop. Sometimes hotels will nail the personalization in the booking and pre-arrival stage, but then on property, you know, you arrive and the receptionist is like, hello, can I have your name? And it's like, you've just sent me a welcome WhatsApp message saying, hi, Danica. So again, it's not just focusing on the pre-arrival, it's making sure you've got that personalization embedded throughout the guest journey.
Super important, because it is true. Sometimes we think that personalization and your guest communication even has to do with everything you say from the booking moment and the offers that you before they and so on. But then if you don't focus on the whole loop, then you're not going to be giving the same experience, basically the same level to them, right?
Yeah.
Super nice to see that.
It's got to be seamless, like throughout. Our expectations as guests are pretty high.
Exactly. And I think it's only going to get harder as more technology comes in and as more experiences from other industries start to blend into hospitality. Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing, Dika. And then Anna, if we talk about, then we're talking about what is failing with this, right? And then we can also look about segmentation. Then what do you think are the segments that hotels are missing out, the ones that they're not considering for their communications?
Another great question, Joanna. I think when we talk about segmentation, to avoid falling into the trap and take the basic route of first-timers, business travelers, and so forth, I suggest to go a bit deeper and beyond. For example, by segmenting on high spenders with a specific offer that makes them feel VIP, or become more personal by building segments based on previous purchase services, for example, because you already know them what they like. But an often forgotten or ignored audience is local guests, where you get the opportunity to also fill unsold capacity. And you don't have to limit yourself to rooms only. It could be, for example, F&B, food and beverage, to make reservation in the restaurant, for example, or availability in the spa that you could fill up. And by truly knowing your guests' unique needs and preferences, and by having the ability to segment your data around it, will give you a strong competitive edge. So if you're looking to grow your revenue through your communication, make sure, as you also mentioned and brought up, Danica, be personal, specific, and relevant for everyone you would like to target. And let's be honest, we're halfway through and halfway into 2025. And if you ignore the importance of segmentation and you target your guests, all guests with the same message, you will not win the gold medal.
Yes, absolutely. And I really like this that you're mentioning about the local guests, because that's quite an opportunity for every hotel that, for example, if you have a spa, right, or you have a very nice restaurant or a very nice bar, then you have a holiday coming up, for example, then you could actually build a campaign about that and then reach out to these local guests and invite them to just come over, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really nice. Super nice. Well, we continue. While we go into the next question, I would like to share this question with the audience. What do you guys struggle the most with in your guest communication? You can see now this poll in the screen. So please go ahead and answer while we go into our next question. And let's talk about upselling now, Carl. So we're talking about things that are failing, things that people are not really paying attention. So now we're going to look about are the top 3 upselling opportunities that most hotels are missing. What are they not offering? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, great question, Johanna. So what we typically see is, let me categorize the hotels into 2 groups, right? One group, they're doing upselling, they have a partner, they have a specialist, so they already know the importance of it. Second group, they're not doing nothing, which we come across a lot. So in the second group, it's only opportunities. So there it's hard to pick 3. So therefore, I would like to focus on the first group. hotels that are already doing upselling, but how can they, what are the top 3 items they can do? Now, the first one I really would like to relate to what Danica and Anna said is really targeting, right? So what we call is like you should create really like a sniper list, a hit list. And if you take like a room upgrade, really put in a room type benefits kind of matrix where you define which is the ideal customer for what room type, right? And if I have a customer that is already in the ideal room type, there is no point in trying to upsell them out of it into a better, worse experience, and even make them pay for it, right? So the first one is like targeting. The second one is bundling. And here I have a great example of an early check-in. Guest comes into hotel early, hotel front office agent says, you can have the room, you can go 2 hours earlier into the room, but you need to pay 40 euros for it. Now, the perception of the guest of the value is not that high, right? Now, if you bundle that together with a room upgrade in saying, dear guest, you can check in, I have a premium room for you. It has those benefits, and the additional benefit is you can already check in now, right? Now you're bundling a room upgrade, a better room experience with an early check-in for a higher value than for the early check-in. So in this case, the perception of the guest is of a higher value and the hotel makes more revenue, right? And we actually work with a chain here that are experts in it and transforming a 40 euro early check-in into 200 euro room upgrades just by bundling it. And at the end of the day, both upgrades are really high profitable. So nearly no cost attached to it. And then the third one is especially for resort hotels is that we see that a lot of hotels are focusing on pre-arrival and on their on-arrival list, right? So everyone is preparing their upselling based on an arrival list, but you barely see a hotel preparing an upselling strategy based on a departure list. And while the guest is in-house, there are still huge opportunities to upsell them, like take for a departure, a late checkout. Again, here you can bundle it. If there is like a brunch or anything like that, you can bundle late checkout with a brunch experience. But also for resorts, what we see is that guests are very interested in maybe they don't have the budget to go for a premium room for their 14 days they are staying at the resort, but they would like to experience that for 2 or 3 days, right? If the hotels has the inventory, why not target the guests while they are in property? So those would be the top 3 one for hotels that are already upselling, which I would recommend.
So interesting, especially that idea about focusing on the departure list. That's such an opportunity because, as you say, many properties, and I would say maybe like most of the properties, they're focusing on the arrival list, right, instead of the departure. So super interesting, and also offering to experience the premium rooms for a couple of nights. Like if I get that offer when I'm going to a resort, it's obviously not going to break the bank, right? It will be just like a little bit extra, and it might give me more chances to convert, take it, than going for the full package. Super nice. Perfect. So we've talked a little bit about strategy-wise in that sense, about how do we identify what's failing and so on and so on. And now we're going to get into the specific topic of how to craft the messages and choose the channels, how to prepare the offers. So Danica, let's go over a few tips to creating messages that feel personal, but that don't require that you are spending like 8 hours in a desk, basically preparing your campaigns. So what would you say? What are these like quick tips?
Yeah, I just want to set the scene as well of just how difficult it is for hoteliers to get this right. And there really is no, here's a successful blueprint. So it's testing and trialing. I did a study once with a 1-night stay, OTA booking, 80 euros, Amsterdam airport. And in the booking journey, that guest for a 1-night stay booked on a famous OTA had 29 touch points for a 1-night stay. So unfortunately, even if you're a brand, hotels really have to bring their personality to cut through the noise. So it's important to remember that the systems are there to do the heavy lifting. The hotel tech vendors like BookBoost, Upsell Guru, they're there to do the lifting, but it's really the human side that brings the soul. So automation isn't the enemy of personalization. Bad automation is. So going back to Anna's point, when we look at segmentation, I think a lot of hoteliers get into this mindset that personalization means it has to be unique to every individual. It doesn't. It just needs to be relevant. So looking at, like Anna said, you're grouping your guests by purpose of stay or booking channel is the fundamental basis of 101 starting place. Then when we look at the actual content to use, it's really important we think about how can we capture the guest preferences and leverage that into the messaging. This is really difficult, very, very difficult for hoteliers to do. And it's about testing and trying. But if you think about that messaging, instead of just saying like, welcome back, Danica, it lands differently if you pair it with, welcome back, Danica, we've stocked your room with your favorite mint tea again. That's what drives loyalty. That's personalization at its optimization. And then really to make sure that the templates, the processes, the strategies that you have are flexible and can be editable in some place to really bring in that human voice. Like guests don't care if it's automated. Everything in our life is automated. I'm upset when it's cold and not relevant. So really think about how you can use like warm language and be a human. And really by making it editable, let's take a pre-arrival WhatsApp communication or email. If it's raining that day, give the front desk or your reservations team that flexibility in that template to say, hey, welcome, Danica, you're arriving today. It's raining. Don't worry. We've got the fireplace on and a cup of coffee waiting for you. That's the difference between personalization and personalization that really adds value to the guest.
Super nice. I love that the enemy of guest experience is not automation, but bad automation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it makes total sense. I think no one is trying to have this magic formula or like hit the jackpot, right? You just need to make it work and need to make it be nice and real and sound like a human, not like a bot.
Yeah. And I think that flexibility, like we don't know what channels are going to be around. We don't know what AI is doing to our landscape. So any strategies that hotels today listening are putting in place, it has to be flexible because it might look completely different in 6 months' time.
Exactly. Learning to adapt. Also, I mean, what you said, nothing is going to be perfect from the first try. So if you're trying to do it more and you realize like, oh, it's not changing anything, like don't just go and like throw everything out because it takes time and it takes quite a few like attempts from your part as well. Perfect. Super good. So now we have a little bit of like how to craft these messages that feel personal, right? Segmentation, talk like a human, aim to give these extra things that guests will appreciate. But now, how do we do when it comes to choosing the channel? Because communication also has an impact depending on what channel you are using. It's not the same to have the same message through email, WhatsApp, and SMS, right? It's different. So let's talk about how to choose a channel. Anna, walk us through that. What are the recommendations on how do we choose where to talk to our guests?
Right. I would say it's always good to start by asking yourself a few questions. For example, when would I like to communicate a specific message or the content? Is it pre, during, or post-stay? What is the guest preferred communication channel? How rich or large is the content I would like to send? And also, how urgent is it? When you have looked into and asked yourself and kind of or hopefully also got a fair understanding of it, you can start to break it down into a preferred channel mix. And there I would like to say, to have a foundation or to frame it a little bit, you can say that email works best for pre-arrival and post-day communication. You should consider this channel when you want to send rich content in advance. Email is cost-effective, but it often comes with low open rate and low click-through rate. For SMS, on the other hand, works best for time-sensitive alerts. That could, for example, be when you send a check-in reminder or a room-ready notification. And this channel should be prioritized when you have a strong call to action. SMS tend to have a high open rate, but on the other hand, it costs more than email, and it has also limited character space. If we then look into WhatsApp, that channel works best for personalized two-way interactions, and you should consider this channel for quick and convenient follow-up messages during stay. WhatsApp is highly engaging and is mobile friendly, but it requires compliance with WhatsApp business policies, and messaging fees may apply. So my recommendation is to not limit your guest communication to one channel only. A guest journey will be more engaging when you combine different channels, and that will also lead to higher conversion and increased guest satisfaction.
Super interesting. And I don't know if anyone knew, for example, that SMS is actually more costly than sending a WhatsApp message or than sending an email. So that's such a nice point to keep in mind. And some brands, for example, they use it when it's like a more urgent thing, like something that I need you to look at right now, then it makes sense to shoot an SMS, right? I really like what you said also about considering how long the message will be. Because imagine if you're sending a WhatsApp message that is like a testament, like what guest is going to want to read that or go through that? Then I think email is your best choice, right? So I think all of those things that you mentioned are really important to consider when you're trying to choose which will be your best channel. Anything to add on that?
One point, Johanna. When you say like sending this long, regardless of which channel you send that long message on, I would say we touch base upon it, but no one wants to feel bombarded. So when you send something, make sure it's relevant and meaningful, and it has to add value. So just imagine if you receive that long message over email, WhatsApp, SMS, or another channel, and you actually take the time to read through it, and at the end of the bottom, you still sit there with unanswered questions. That is not value adding. So keep it short to the point and pick the right channel for that specific message, regardless of where in the guest journey the guest is when they receive it.
Yeah. I think it's also important to add, when we talk about guest communication and personalization, we look at data capture, the good old conversation of how do I get that guest's email address and telephone number if it's an OTA booking. And that needs to be nailed first, because even if you have the best guest communication strategy, your conversions, unfortunately, because guests are so busy, are going to be on the lower end. So that pool of who do I communicate to needs to be as big and as accurate as possible. And I think the hotels that do that very, very well, most of the time, their reception teams will have it KPI'd. You know, so how many email addresses, how many mobile phones are you capturing? And then also leveraging tools like digitalized check-in to be able to capture in an automated way the guest details, but that has to be part of the strategy as well.
Definitely needs to be considered. Perfect. So now we've covered as well about the channels, and now we keep talking about how to make our messages stand out or convert more. So Carl, let's talk about how to structure an upgrade offer. How can we structure it to have more probabilities to convert? What will be your tips?
So Danica and Anna, they already went into how to craft the message and also which channel to use, right? So let me get into now the probability on how to increase. Because at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to increase the odds of converting that customer, right? And now take an example. I love gambling, right? So I go to the casino, and if you give me 1,000 euros today, Johanna, and you send me to the casino, I would go to the roulette table, right? And I wouldn't put it on a certain number, but I would put it on a color, because there I have okay, it's not really a 50-50. Now the programmers will say, but there is a 0 and double 0. So, but it's nearly a 50-50 chance, right? So this is where I would put my money on. And this is essentially what you want to create with your messages being sent on a pre-arrival, but also I think what we underestimating is the channel is your stuff, which is a super powerful channel when the guest checks in. We want to set them up for success, that it's not betting on a certain number, but they have I'm putting on black or on red because I have a 50-50 to convert, because I really prepared. I know this guest is staying at the wrong room type, and I can recommend them a better experience. And how you do it, it's very similar to dating, right? Like the worst dates you go, and I haven't been, in case my wife is watching, I haven't been dating for many, many years, my love. So in case you go to a good date, at the end of the day, you don't want the person to talk for 70-80% of the time, right? And it's the same at the front desk. You don't want the front office agent having a talking 70-80% and the guest just replying to questions. You rather want that the front office agent asks the right questions to identify how can I make the stay better. And it's so easy to do it. You just need to ask them, and you have the chance while they are in front of you, right? It's hard with the technology sometimes, but when they are in front of you, we can really craft that message. If you have prepared beforehand, knowing that I can get the guest a better experience, then it's you increase the probability of upgrading them to a better room, but also not only upgrading them and making and monetizing it. At the end of the day, you want that the guest at checkout comes to you and say, "Thank you so much for recommending me that room. That was amazing."
Super interesting to mention that we shouldn't forget about that channel that we also have, right? The front desk. Super interesting. And do you think there are any specific timing that is like a better timing to send these upselling offers? When would you recommend hotels to start the process, or when to actually send out these messages?
Yeah, great question. So now I could go into details and say, what is the difference between sending 3 days before at 2 p.m. versus 4 days before at noon, right? But I will tell you a little secret that won't move the needle. Now, what moves the needle is really to, rather than talking about the timing, is more like on what touch points of the guest journey do I want to, what do I want to communicate to the guest, right? So it starts already at booking. What do I want to communicate during the booking process versus pre-arrival versus on arrival versus in-stay versus departure. So for me, it's rather than looking into what is it 3 or 4 or 5 days at what time, it's more on which touch points do I want to position what, without overwhelming the guest and really showing everything to everyone at every single touch point, right? Because this will go against conversion. Rather be very, very targeted and really pick your different touch points to define what do you want to do. And I loved what Danica mentioned before. It's at the end of the day, it's a trial and error, right? There is no secret recipe. A resort hotel will be completely different than a city hotel, and it has to do with your segmentation, etc., etc.
Yes, I agree. We're still on the same line, that it's about trial and error, and also about considering the whole journey, like we were discussing before, not just one standalone message. Super. I'm gonna shoot the second poll for you guys to start taking a look and start letting us know what is stopping you from improving your guest communication. What do you think is the situation right now? And while we go into that, let's talk about our next question. And this one is for Anna. So we touched a little bit of the channels, but I'm very curious to find out the use cases of WhatsApp. So what are other hotels communicating with this channel? And this might be a few ideas that you guys want to try, our audience watching this webinar. So take notes on what you could also do in your property. Anna, can you share with us?
Yeah, sure. I have so many examples, so I need to think of which one to share, be mindful with time. But right before I do it, I would first quickly give you a generic answer before breaking that down. And if we just look back a few years in time, contactless guest interactions were nice to have. Nowadays, they are an absolute must, since it allows guests to access information they need beforehand without even having to put much effort into it. And guest messaging is not only a good way to foster interactions, it also allows your property and your team to save hours of manual work each day, boost revenue, and enhance the guest experience. So let me provide you with a few real examples from what we do together with our customers, just to give you a sense of not necessarily urgency to implement the same, but an understanding of what's possible. Let's pick one in Switzerland, Capsule Hotel. They've been a customer, one of our customers for many years now. And they wanted to increase the online check-in rate. They wanted to offer this service, but they felt limited doing this via email only because there was no real call to action, as I mentioned before. Using that channel for asking for the guest to do something, offering that service didn't really progress. It was the rate of doing it was super low. So they came to us and said, hey, we need your help here. What can we do? So we looked into the data and we understood they need to broaden the channel mix here. So we took the same message, and this is just one example, but it's super powerful. We took the same message that was sent via email, triggered that via WhatsApp. That same message increased the online check-in rate with 60%. Because there was a call to action. They receive it via their preferred communication channel, and conversion rate, as we know, it's much higher if you use an instant channel, and the closer you come or move to check-in, the more likely you are to read and take action on messages via, for example, WhatsApp and SMS. Another one is Gambino in Germany, and they would like to just make their guests feel very taken care of. Who doesn't want that? But what they do is that approximately 10 minutes after check-in has been completed, they trigger a message saying, is everything okay? That is, of course, super nice to receive. Someone sees me, they care about my needs, they care about how I appreciate this day. But what also happens with such message is if something has already gone south or is not perfect, they receive the feedback and they have enough time to take action on it. Just imagine if someone checks out and say, hey, I would have appreciated more towels in my room, for example. At that time when you receive it, you can immediately take action and say, okay, of course, we'll bring in more towels.
Yes.
But at the moment of checkout, it's too late.
It's a little bit.
So that single message is also super powerful. Last but not least, Jana, you need to stop me if I don't have enough time here.
We have like 30 more seconds for this question. So share the last one. Okay,
I do it super quickly. Nobis Hospitality Group, located in Sweden, Denmark, and Spain, they use WhatsApp. They're like high-end, super good in service, but they also believe that being digital present is super important. So what they do is that they allow their guests to interact via WhatsApp during stay, because not everyone will like the effort, the extra steps down the lobby, or to pick up the phone and call the reception. So they have implemented a workflow to communicate via WhatsApp, also super powerful for them.
Absolutely. And I think at the end, it's about giving them options. Give them options so the guests can actually do whatever it feels best for them, or whatever they're most comfortable with. Why they're at your hotel? Why would you force them to call to reception if they don't like to talk to people, right? So having the options, I think that's what works best. Super. We are going to go into our last question before our Q&A space. So let's go quickly into this question. I think one of the best ones as well. So Danica, you've talked to hundreds of hotels. What is a creative personalization tactic that you've seen that some hotels use that you think the others should steal it, or that you want to share with our audience today?
Yeah, and there's some really good examples out there. I think before I share them, I think it's important to remember that the guest experience itself has changed and what guests are looking for. We're looking for authentic stays, memorable stays, something that connects with me emotionally. It's no longer a bed and an upgrade. And secondly, to put some context around my use cases is, there's Skift's research showed that 63% of guests are willing to give their personal data in exchange for a personalized stay. So we want this as guests. So a great example is the Ned in London. They offer guests personalized Spotify playlists. So before arrival, the Ned offers frequent guests a chance to link their Spotify. So when the guest enters the room, their favorite playlist is softly playing in the background. Why should you steal this idea? Because sound triggers emotion and memory. It's intimate and it really elevates that feeling of being known and valued as a guest. So that kind of leans into how can I evoke emotions and really make this stay memorable? Then the second example I have is from the Hoxton. And they offer personalized city guides. So what they do is instead of a generic brochure, the Hoxton builds custom city guides based on the guest interests. Are you a foodie, vintage shopper, dog, music lover? That the guest has shared during that booking process. And then they create and craft these beautifully printed guides that are waiting in the room. So why should you steal this idea? Well, it turns the basic concierge suggestions into a really thoughtful, branded, memorable gift that, of course, everyone's going to share on Instagram. So I think personalization in 2025 needs to have a purpose and it has to add value to the guest. So I think they're really cool examples that are pretty easy to implement. The printed one, maybe you need a bit of budget for that. But there's lots of other examples, but conscious of time. So I think they were my favorite too.
Absolutely. And so nice to just go out of the usual email and try to think about something else that you can give it. One example from one of our partners as well, one of our clients, they send this curated playlist on Spotify. They share it before the guests arrive, kind of like in a preparation, since you have booked this kind of retreat, it's a bit of a more wellness tourism focus. So since you booked this kind of retreat, this playlist is what goes with you.
Nice.
So super nice as well how they are.
That gets you excited. Yeah, as a guest, you're like, woohoo, let's go. And that's
Absolutely.
what we want from a guest day, not hello, Danica Smith.
Exactly. The point is, how can you make them excited about their stay, right? Yeah. So let's go quickly into a few questions that the audience might have. If you have any questions, anything that you would like to ask today, get more examples, clarifications, please send your questions. We have a few minutes to answer them before we wrap this session up. So looking forward to seeing if anyone has a question, just send it in. But I do think what we nailed today is about getting started with improving your communications. It's not a titanic task. There are so many small things that you can do day by day to be able to take your communication to another level. From just stop calling your guest dear guest, right? Add something else, to choose the right channel, to think about the offers that you're going to send in your upselling process as well, to these other ideas. Here we have a question. From Dominic. Wonder what kind of companies do the technical part, like connecting guests, Spotify playlist. How can we implement this? Danica, this is one of the examples that you share. Maybe you have some info on this.
I don't know the actual tech vendor at the NED that's providing that technology, but that's what Google and ChatGPT is for. There's so many new tech vendors that have just mushroomed in the last 12 months. So we know the use cases there, the technology there. I think a little bit of Google search and you'll find a quick list. Dominic, if you find me on LinkedIn, I'll try and do some research and make some introductions for you.
Absolutely, and also we could find like some extra, right? Like depends on how you want to share it. For example, if you want them to find the music as soon as they get to the room, right? Or if you want to send them in advance, then it's more about like adding it in a very nice looking message. But you will be giving them something personal either way, or kind of like doing something that is different to what every accommodation provider out there is doing. And I think today is about standing out. So how can you stand out with your communication as well?
Yeah. Can I just add here, Joanna, that if you implement something like that, you have to make sure operationally you can deliver it. You cannot offer a guest, would you like this unique, cool thing in your room? And I arrive and my Spotify list is not playing. So
Absolutely.
That's also like, make sure that, Dominic, if you enter those kind of conversations, you bring in your ops team to make sure that housekeeping are aware of the setup or however it's going to work. That's fundamental that you can operationally deliver it.
Absolutely. I would say do not make empty promises if you don't have the plan, because that's actually one of the reasons why guests don't come back, because you promised too much and you couldn't deliver.
Yeah.
So super nice to highlight that point. Let's see if we have any other questions that we can answer before finishing our session. So let's see if you have something. Now is the time to answer. Now it's time to send your questions. Okay, then it seems like we don't have, or maybe we do. Okay, so I have a booking confirmation and a thank you email for after they leave. How could I make them more impactful? Okay, what can we do if we already have these 2 touch points, right? What can we, how can we tweak them? Any recommendation from you guys?
I come up with a few in my mind, and it goes back to data. The better, more enriched data you have, the more enriched information about the guest, obviously, you have as well. So sending out the booking confirmation should not be a standardized confirmation with the same information to everyone. It tends to be too long, and also irrelevant. So I would say if you are a returning guest, regardless if the booking was made the first time via an OTA and second time directly with the brand, there are tools that will recognize that this is the same guest. If it is the same guest, treat them like a returning guest. And we say name is not enough, but name is one, like welcome back is a huge difference to just welcome. And thank you for your confirmation, the name, and a few lines that make that guest feel special. Because then they also know you are aware that they have been there before. They feel more welcome. And then, as you brought up, Carl, when we talked about the pre-stay phase, I think this phase should not be ignored. It's ideal to set the right expectations, and that starts so early in the guest journey. Could even start before the confirmation is sent out. But if it's not, make sure that one stands out. Make them feel special. Add a few lines that is something that they put attention to, because Absolutely. That will also set the right expectations in the pre-stay phase.
Yes, and it's different, right? From welcome, Anna, here's your booking, your room is confirmed. So like, welcome back, Anna. We're so happy to have you with us again. Your room is now confirmed. Like, look at these
small details that make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And you can use tools like Bookboost, for example, a CRM, to actually have your templates, and then automatically it will shoot different emails depending on the type of guest. But even if you do not have a tool, you could also prepare your templates on Google Drive, have them on a document, and then if you see, oh, do I have this guest have been here before? I use this one. If it hasn't, I use the other one. So today we can find solutions, even if you don't have the right tech at the moment, right? And then maybe later you upgrade. So super good. Just a couple more questions. Yes, there will be a recording available, so we will send it out, no problem. And then how many touch points would you suggest in the guest journey using email and SMS?
Great question. Great question, James. I would say instead of looking at the number of touch points, what is it that you're touching them with? If it adds value, I'm happy to have 10. Also, what kind of guest day am I? The way that I want to talk to a guest's leisure is different to corporate. But I think testing and trialing, and James, you're on the right path by even asking that question in the first place.
Absolutely. By even considering an extra channel, right? By even considering SMS, you're already on the right path. And I think it's always about thinking as well, would I like to receive this? Would I think that it's trash, or is it adding something, right? We have one question as well for Carl. Carl, in many hotels, the focus on upselling is on room upgrades and selling additional food and beverage. But how can hotels create a culture where all employees are actively engaged in upselling?
Great question. So room upgrades and food and beverage, yes, that's also what we see, especially room upgrades, because it's simply the most profitable upgrades that you have, right? There is no cost associated if you already have that guest to upgrade them to a higher room category. Now, how to get, what you need to do is build a culture within the hotel. And this goes, for the one hand, you need to train your staff. So really equip them with the skills to be successful. Second one is implement a successful incentive program. So at the end, answering the question, what's in for me? I can make more money, right? What we see, especially what works really well, is when hotel creates like team goals, saying for the month of, we had a great example of a hotel in Germany where the GM said, if you reach that target, then I will cover the front office shift on a Saturday night, and you guys can go out and have like kind of a team event, right? Nice. So everyone was really working throughout that goal, and everyone was really committed to deliver to it and doing their best and always looking. But essentially what you need to have is you need to have visibility on the performance, right? It should be something, upselling for us should be something that is discussed 3 times a day at every shift. What is my opportunity? Who can I upsell? Where are we towards our target? And really measure it and manage it proactively. Then you create a really fun culture for the entire team.
Yeah. And if I can just add to that as well, Carl, it's important what I've seen with like housekeeping and maintenance and the other back of house teams is that guest satisfaction is fundamental to upsell. If my room's not clean, I'm definitely not going to go down to spa and book a massage. So it's really like that team effort as well of like housekeeping, maintenance. You are part of this guest journey, which is going to result in an upsell. And that culture and the link between guest satisfaction and upsell is so interlinked, and the GMs that can connect those dots, they're doing it very well.
Absolutely. And as we said, keep it on the loop. The key to a good experience is not just in communication that converts, it's in a whole experience, right? For every department. Well, perfect. Thank you so much. We've reached the end of our session today. I want to thank our speakers. Great knowledge, great insights, and so many examples that we all have a list now to start applying back in our properties. Thank you so much for joining us. Pay attention to your emails because you will receive not just the recording, but some extra resources that we're going to share with you so you can start applying these tips. And for every kind of hotels as well. We don't have time for more questions right now, but please let's stay in touch. If you want to know something, add our speakers on LinkedIn, send them a message, add me on LinkedIn if you want to as well. I can help. And let's keep making hospitality simple, and let's start acting today. See you on our next Book Boost webinar. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.